I will introduce to you formally the two speakers. Victor Hugo Tinoco studied philosophy, medicine, and business administration, and has a degree in sociology from the Central American University, the UCA. In 1973, he entered the FSLN, and from 1979 to 1980, right after the revolution, he became ambassador of Nicaragua to the United Nations. From 1981 until 1990, which was 1990 was the year that the Sandinistas were voted out of power. From 1981 to 1990, he was first vice minister of foreign relations. Then from 1997 to 2001, he was a member of the Nicaraguan parliament representing the FSLN, and for 2 of those years was leader of the Sandinista minority in the Commission on Foreign Affairs and the Anti-Corruption Commission of Parliament. However, since that time, he has parted ways with the FSLN and became a leading supporter of the efforts, actually first within the FSLN and then once expelled outside the FSLN, to provide an alternative Sandinista voice and led the campaign for Erti Luites in 2006, which was short-circuited some by Luites died of a heart attack in the course of that campaign. Edmundo Jarquin took over from him in that campaign as the leader of the Sandinista renovation movement. And Edmundo Jarquin today is the vice presidential candidate of the PLI Alliance. And so Victor Hugo Tinoco is here associated with the MRS Alliance, the Movimiento Renovador Sandinista Alliance, which is part of this opposition coalition, the PLI Alliance. Kathy Hoyt is someone I have known since the late 1980s, and she is co-director of the Nicaraguan Network and the writer and editor of its weekly Nicaragua News Bulletin. She lived for 18 years in Latin America, 2 of them in Chile and 16 in Nicaragua. In the mid-1980s, she was director of the Michigan Interfaith Committee on Central American Human Rights here in Detroit. She is a graduate of Vassar College, holds a master's degree from my department, quite coincidentally, the political science department at Wayne State University, and then a PhD in political science from Rutgers. Most notably, she is the author of a splendid book, which I should have brought with me tonight, called The Many Faces of Sandinista Democracy from Ohio University Press, as well as other publications on Nicaragua. And she was the leader of a recent delegation of the Nicaragua Network, which I happened to be on, in June, looking into the events surrounding the election. So with that, I give you Victor Hugo Tinoco.
Well, I will do my best in English. So in terms of using time.
Testing.
Yeah.
There you are. Okay, good.
I will do my best in English, and I will request your help, Kathy, when I got some problems. The Sandinista revolution was in the 60s and the 70s, was basically a revolution that had 2 basic purposes, or 2 basics, political banners, let's say. The first purpose was social justice. Try to have a more, a better country for our people, very poor country, a small country, etc., etc. And the second purpose of the Nicaraguan Revolution was to put an end to a family dictatorship that had governed Nicaragua during almost 50 years. This last purpose, especially, was very attractive and important for Nicaraguan people, and especially for young people. And so many of us, we went to the jungles, we went to fight against Mossad. Many people died and were killed at that war. So for us, Sandinistas that were fighting against the Somoza dictatorship, always the idea was to have a free Nicaragua without dictatorship, without a family that is putting one president and then the sister or the daughter of the president or the boy of the president becomes the new one, because that was the history of the Somoza family. The grandfather, father, and the son, all of them were presidents in Nicaragua. Then, those were the two basic motivations. We went through very difficult circumstances in the 80s, and now we are now in Nicaragua, in this new century. Since after the electoral defeat in 1990, there was a tendency inside the FSLN that said, we have to continue with our economic and social goals, but we should transform our party in a democratic party that will practice democracy inside the party and that will practice democracy in the society as a whole. And we said, part of democratic life in an institution or in a country, part of democratic life is to have renewal leadership of people when the time comes for that. So we begin to put pressure for changes inside the FSLN after the electoral defeat in the 90s. We had some success. In a sense, we forced the old guard inside the party to accept eternal elections, especially for election in year 2001. And we started the process of more debate and more competition inside the party. Since that time in the 90s, the sector of the Sandinista party that was promoting democratization in the party began to face the resistance of the sector of the old leadership, especially the resistance of current President Daniel Ortega. For example, since the 90s, there was a process inside the FSLN when all those leaders, middle-level leaders that began to be more visible, they began to be put aside, basically, problem like that. So that's why since 1995, 5 years after the electoral defeat, there was a split in the FSLN, and a sector of the leadership went out of they decided to go without the party, and they organized the MRS. The MRS participated in the elections in the year 2001, and the result for that group at that time was not so good. It was about 1% of the vote, and so it was in the after year 2000, the MRS was a little bit like in a small party with not enough influence inside the party in society. But after the year 2000, 2001, more and more people, after elections were going in Nicaragua every 5 years, every time you have an election, people were saying, well, why not to have another candidate? Why we should have only the same candidate? See? So, and then every new year, more and more Sandinista people were leaving the party because they didn't like the fact that they were noticing that Ortega would continue to be the only candidate to be accepted in the FSLN. After the year 2001, I was still in 2001 until 2005. I was in the National Directorate of the FSLN. We were trying to keep the democratic spaces inside the FSLN, but was not possible. Why? Because for the elections of 2006, as Ortega presented his candidacy inside the party, we said, okay, we will present another candidate. If we support the Managua mayor, the capital of the country is Managua, the Managua mayor that was a very popular Sandinista, and we support him. So that was something that Ortega didn't like. And suddenly, he decided that Herty Levites and me, we were not anymore members of the FSLN. We were expelled. We were trying to fight for democracy inside the party, you see. Because, not only because democracy is a good thing, but because we think that democracy, a democratic, progressive, leftist party, we will have more possibility of have enough strength to change things in Nicaragua. Well, we were expelled. So when we were expelled, we went to be members of the other Sandinista party that existed. And we were expelled in year 2005. In the election of 2006, we supported that mayor as an independent party, the Renewal Sandinista movement. And our presidential candidate got 6% of the electorate. And the list of our candidates for Congress got about 9% of the electorate. It was a significant advance in relation to what happened some years before, that the party had only 1%. And the other important thing is that in the Renewal Sandinista Party are participating half of the old member of the National Directorate, of the old leadership of the party. Only 6 of the old leadership, I mean the leaders in the 80s, only 6 are active. 3 are supporting Ortega, and the other 3 are supporting the MRS. So we got in those elections 6 presidential elections and almost 9 in the list of members of Congress. That was year 2006. So we elected members to Congress. We were elected members to Congress, and we continue to work hard and to go forward. But what happened is that